In July 1993, an assemblyman for the Central Pahang state in Malaysia, Datuk Mazlan Idris, approached Mona Fandey, a known witch doctor in Malaysia, for supernatural help to boost his political career and climb the UMNO party ladder. He was persuaded by Mona and her husband to take part in a ritual in which he was to lay on the floor with his eyes closed and wait for money to fall from the sky. To his dismay, it wasn't money that fell from the sky, but the blade of an axe. Mazna Ismail was born on 1 January 1956. She had a thirst for the spotlight from a very young age. When she was still a child, she was a water ballet dancer and was skilled enough to have her routines broadcast on television across the world. Her interest in the arts blossomed as she grew older, and she ventured into the music industry as a pop singer in her early 20s. Mazna was married twice before she met and married a man by the name of Maud Afandi Rahman. He said that he was her biggest fan, and he promised her that he would fund her way to becoming the biggest pop star there ever was. It was during this time that she changed her name to Mona Fandey, which was inspired by her husband's nickname. Her music career did not really take off the way she had wanted, but they worked hard at it and managed to come up with one self-sponsored album titled Diana. Whilst promoting her album and her career, she also made a few television appearances. One of her most popular songs is still easily streamable today. The couple welcomed a daughter together, and Mona also gained 2 stepsons from Afandiy's previous marriage, who she adopted as her own. After becoming a mom and leaving the music business, she decided to move on to something else: spiritual witchcraft. This is exactly what you think someone would jump to, career-wise, from "I want to be a pop star," right? But she soon became a very popular bomo, a local shaman in her community where she worked, alongside her husband and their helper, Juraimi Hassan. The couple soon realized that they had hit a gold mine when she began offering her services to clients from the upper class society, most of whom were politician clients in the ruling UMNO party, who she provided with a variety of charms and talismans. These clients were willing to fork out big money in exchange for the couple's services. Despite having a rather short stint as a quote-unquote pop star, she lived quite a lavish life due to the money they had from witchcraft. They owned a few houses and bungalows, but didn't like to stay at home. Instead, she and her husband loved to stay at hotels whenever they felt like it. They also had a collection of luxury cars, including a Jaguar, a Mercedes-Benz, and a BMW. And true to her diva nature, Mona loved to shop. In the late 80s and early 90s, these were high status and covetable items and habits, and were by far not as common as they are today, especially not where they lived. And Mona made a point to display their wealth for everyone to see. Mazlan Idris, a state assemblyman for the constituency of Batu Talam in the state of Pahang, wanted to boost his political career and was eyeing the chief minister post. He heard through the grapevine about some other politicians and the successes they had with Mona and Afandi, and they sought out their witchcraft services for assistance in his own career. Mazlan was educated in the United States and was an ambitious politician from the ruling United Malays National Organization Party. Mona and her husband promised to help Mazlan by giving him some talismans, consisting of a cane and a sabatmi songgok. A songgok is a hat worn by Muslim men in Malaysia on formal occasions, and sabatmi are Malaysian amulets made from the seeds of an oil palm. They told him that these talismans were owned by former Indonesian President Sukarno. Mona and her husband convinced Mazlan that he would be invincible if he had these talismans, and in return, they demanded 2.5 million Malaysian ringgit. Mazlan paid the couple 500,000 as a deposit and gave them 10 land titles as surety for the remaining 2 million that he owed them. An appointment was then made for cleansing rituals to be performed at an unfinished house of the couple. When Mazlan arrived, they told him to lie on the floor, face up, while Mona placed flowers on him for a flower bath cleansing ritual. She then told him to close his eyes and wait for money to fall from the sky. As he closed his eyes waiting, Juraimi used an axe and chopped Mazlan's head off. After murdering Mazlan, Juraimi dismembered his body into 18 different parts and also partially skinned his body, and then buried him in a hole inside a storeroom near the house and covered it with cement. Mazlan was reported as missing on the 2nd of July 1993, after withdrawing 300,000 Malaysian ringgit, which was around $12,000 at the time, from a bank in Kuala Lumpur, about 130 kilometers away from the state of Pahang. He was also missing from several UMNO functions. His disappearance hogged media headlines for weeks, and family and colleagues thought that he had no way of communication or was held somewhere without being allowed to communicate with anyone. The police started investigating, even though there were no leads on where Mazlan might have gone. On July 22, a break in the case was made when Juraimi was picked up on an unrelated drug offense, and whilst probably high as a kite, admitted to them that he was involved in Mazlan's murder. He also then led them to where he buried the body. The Federal Criminal Investigation Department then made the gruesome discovery of Mazlan's dismembered body, buried 6 feet deep in a pit covered with cement. Not all parts of his dismembered body was found, and rumors spread that the threesome had consumed them, but this was never proven. Police also found an altar and statues of deities, as well as knives and an axe at the scene. Furthermore, a .38 Smith & Wesson revolver, which belonged to Mazlan, was also found buried in the area. It was also reported to police after Mazlan's body was found that he was last seen in his car with a Fandey heading towards the house where he would be killed, which gave police enough to arrest all 3 of them on suspicion of murder. Around 3 a.m. on the 3rd of July 1993, a Fandey and one person checked in at Plaza Hotel at Kuala Lumpur. They checked out of the hotel on the 4th of July and checked in at the Park Royal Hotel on the same day. They left Mazlan's car in the basement of the car park back at the Plaza Hotel to throw police off the scent. After the murder, Mona and Fandey were reported to have been on a shopping spree in Kuala Lumpur, when she bought herself a new Mercedes-Benz 280S, which she paid for in cash, and she also had a facelift. If she had the facelift to make herself look as evil as she most certainly was, she definitely succeeded. Fandey and Mona were said to be in financial strain before the 3rd of July, due to the extravagant lifestyle, and it was suspicious how they could suddenly have all that money to spend. On top of that, Mazlan's shoes were found in Juraimi's room, without any explanation as to how they got there. Mona and Fandey also had the victim's identity card in their possession. They even gave it to one witness on the 9th of July to sell off his car. They told this person that Mazlan owed them money, and that he wanted to repay them by selling the car. They were also in possession of his watch, which she gave to her brother on the 5th of July. When travelling back from Kuala Lumpur to Uludong, they did so in a limousine and bought land where they decided that they would develop a resort. They tried to explain away all the money that they had spent by saying that it was from the money that they received from Mazlan before he was murdered and not after the murder. But police were convinced that they committed murder, and it was driven by greed. This is also when rumours started doing the rounds about Mona and her abilities, stating that she was able to float and transport herself out of prison. A prison guard that watched over her stated that she never displayed any of these abilities, as was mentioned in the newspapers. On the 3rd of August 1993, the 3 accused were charged with the murder of Mazlan Idris, to which all 3 pled not guilty. The charge of murder, if found guilty, carried a mandatory death sentence in Malaysia. The trial started on 12 September 1994 and had a 7-person jury. Their trial was the last trial by jury to ever take place in Malaysia, as it was abolished from January 1st, 1995. The trial was a media sensation. Unlike most people on trial for their life, Mona always had a smile for the media and seemed to revel in the attention. She constantly posed for press photographers so they could take her photo instead of shying away from the attention. Mona also had a penchant for wearing expensive outfits to court every day, and the outfits that she wore were always bright and colorful. To one journalist, she made the remark, "Looks like I have many fans." A total of 76 witnesses were called. 295 exhibits were presented in court, and the trial lasted for 65 days. The prosecution told the court that money was the motive for the murder, and pointed to the shopping spree, the facelift, and the Mercedes. Juraimi testified against Mona and Fandey and revealed the gruesome details of the murder. Juraimi indicated that he had committed the murder under duress after being commanded to do it by Mona and Fandey. Fandey, in his defense, said that Mazlan owed him 2 million ringgit, which was around $526,000, for a magic cane talisman and a traditional hat that he said belonged to former Indonesian President Sukarno. Mona testified that she also gave talismans and charms to several other UMNO politicians to boost their popularity with the electorate, and stated that on the day she was not aware that a murder would be taking place. It took the 7-member jury just 70 minutes to reach a unanimous verdict of guilty against all 3 defendants. Fandey and Mona smiled when the foreman of the jury delivered the verdict on the 9th of February 1995. Mona and Fandey's lawyer was invited to offer mitigation but declined and said they would be lodging an appeal. Juraimi's counsel mitigated by telling the court that his client was only 24, that he was unemployed and of low intelligence, and that he was persuaded by Mona and Fandey to commit the murder. The judge then proceeded to ask the 3 defendants if they had anything to say before he passed the sentence. Fandey and Mona replied that they would leave sentencing to the discretion of the court. The judge passed the death sentence on each of them and added that it would be death by hanging. After hearing her sentence, Mona only said, "I am happy and thank you to all Malaysians," and she was photographed smiling as usual as she was led from the court to prison. Mona Fandey gained more notoriety than she had when she was still a pop singer. There was wide local and even international media coverage and plenty of public interest in her case. Anti-death penalty movements, including Amnesty International, voiced their opposition to the execution of the trio. One of the prison guards that looked after Mona stated that Mona was not the prime suspect in the murder trial, but the 3rd accused person, while the real perpetrator of the case was Mona's husband and his personal assistant Juraimi. She said that she witnessed how Mona was a very good and loyal wife who truly loved her husband and did everything that he asked, and that for as long as she took care of Mona in that cell, there was nothing bad about her. And in fact, on the day of the incident, Mona merely received instructions to pick flowers for the flower bath ritual of the victim, and that she had no idea what was going to happen and merely acted as a good wife, being loyal to her husband. Mona and the others filed appeals to the federal court, and in 1999 the court dismissed their appeals and upheld the death sentence. Finally, the 3 convicts sought to obtain a pardon or clemency from the Pardons Board of Pahang, their final chance at redemption. However, on the 1st of April 2001, the board came back with a decision that clemency will not be granted, leaving the door open for the executions to take place. The executions were set for dawn on Friday, 2 November 2001. On the previous day, Mona and Fandey were allowed an 8-hour visit with a dozen members of their families. It was reported that they spent their last hours advising their children to grow up to be good people, and also told them to take care of themselves well. There was a lot of crying and hugging as they spoke to their children and family for the last time. It is normal practice in Malaysia for condemned prisoners to be given the food of their choice for their last meal. However, this was declined by Mona and Fandey. Before dawn, the trio were each handcuffed and hooded in their holding cells adjacent to the execution chamber, and then led to the gallows. According to prison sources, they were very calm, saying very little and requesting nothing in their last hours. It was stated that none of them showed any remorse or repentance before they were executed, and that just before her execution, Mona uttered the words, "I will never die." At 5:59 a.m., Mona, Fandey, and Juraimi were executed. The bodies were left hanging for an hour before being taken down for autopsy and then burial later during the day. The executions were formally announced later in the morning by a spokesman for Malaysian Prisons Department. After the executions, Mazlan's widow told reporters that she could finally bury the past behind her and said that she hoped to now carry on living her life with her children without their painful memories. In 2002, a Malaysian film director made a short film entitled Mona, and in 2006, a film entitled Dukun was widely assumed to be based on Mona Fandey. This highly anticipated film was originally slated to be released in 2007, but it was postponed and no official statements were given. Due to the adaptation of a true high-profile murder case and the controversial nature of the film, they thought that it might never be released. Mona's family had voiced their dissatisfaction over the content and basis of the film after announcement of the film release. The film regained significant attention years later when news got around of its leaked footage. The leaked footage resurfaced online and drew stern attention from the police and Astro Shaw. After much contemplation on the part of Astro Shaw, it was decided and announced that the film will be released nationwide on the 5th of April 2018, after more than 10 years of finished production. Dukun netted 1.5 million Malaysian ringgit on its first day of screening throughout Malaysia and Brunei, the highest opening night gross for Astro Shaw ever, which accumulated to 6.2 million Malaysian ringgit after only 4 days of release. It went on to rake in 10 million Malaysian ringgit over 20 days after its release. The film was also screened in Singapore, Brunei, and Indonesia. In Singapore, Dukun was screened at 19 screens, the widest release Malaysian language film in Singapore in recent years. Today, people also tour Mona and Fandey's old abandoned house, and they state that it's haunted by ghosts.
師夫婦佢就殺咗好多人。
我哋落車嗰陣時咧，我已經睇到四周圍嘅樹林咧，嗰啲污糟邋遢嘢已經喺度徘徊啦。
So that is it for today. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Do you think that Mona was the mastermind of it all? That she had supernatural powers? And that, in fact, their house is haunted by her ghost? She did, of course, utter the words, "I will never die." Or do you think they just wanted money and attention? Or do you think she was just a dutiful wife who just wanted to make her husband happy and did everything that he asked? Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate your support so very, very much. Until next time, stay safe out there. Bye.